I never thought my own mother would betray me like this. The house on Maple Street had been in our family for 3 generations. It wasn't just wood and stone. It was where I took my first steps, where Dad taught me to ride a bike in the driveway, where we celebrated every Christmas morning. After Dad passed away 5 years ago, he left the property to both of us, Mom and me, with the understanding that it would always stay in the family. "It's your legacy too, Ellie," he had said while signing his will, his hand trembling from the illness that would take him just weeks later. "No matter what happens, you'll always have a home." I believed him. I trusted the legal document we both signed, and I trusted my mother to honor Dad's wishes. What a fool I was. I had moved to Chicago for work 3 years ago, coming home to visit every few months. Mom always said she was doing fine, managing the old house on her own. "Don't worry about me," she'd say during our weekly calls. "The house is being taken care of." I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my mother. Last month, I decided to surprise her for her birthday. I took a week off work, packed my bags, and drove the 4 hours back to my hometown. As I turned onto Maple Street, my heart dropped. There was a "sold" sign on our front lawn. Our front lawn. I parked my car and sat there staring at the sign, trying to make sense of it. There had to be a mistake. Mom would have told me if she was selling the house. She would have discussed it with me. We were co-owners after all. With shaking hands, I called her. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. I got out of the car and walked up to the door, my key still fitting perfectly in the lock. Inside, boxes were stacked everywhere. The familiar furniture was draped with sheets. The family photos that had lined the hallway were packed away. "Mom?" I called out, my voice echoing through the half-empty rooms. "Mom, are you here?" I heard movement upstairs, then footsteps on the stairs. My mother appeared, her face paling when she saw me. "Ellie? What are you doing here?" Her voice was thin, nervous. "Surprise," I said weakly, gesturing to the boxes around us. "Looks like I'm the one who got surprised, though. What's going on? Why is there a sold sign on our lawn?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I was going to call you. It was time for a change. The house is too big for me now, and the maintenance—" "Mom," I interrupted, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "This is my house too. Dad left it to both of us. You can't just sell it without talking to me first." She brushed past me, heading for the kitchen. "It's done, Ellie. The papers are signed. The new owners move in next week." I followed her, disbelief turning to anger. "How could you possibly sell without my signature? I'm on the deed." She busied herself making tea, still avoiding my gaze. "I handled the paperwork. Everything's legal." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. I studied her face, the tight set of her mouth, the way her hands trembled slightly as she set down the kettle. "Show me the sale documents," I demanded. "They're with my lawyer," she replied too quickly. "Then we'll call him right now," I said, pulling out my phone. "It's Sunday, Ellie. His office is closed." I felt sick. "I'm going to stay here tonight, and tomorrow we're going to figure this out." That night, I barely slept. Something wasn't adding up. I remembered Dad's will, how explicit he had been about both of us owning the house. I recalled signing the papers after his death, my name next to my mother's on the deed. There was no way she could have legally sold the house without my consent. Unless. The thought that crept into my mind was so awful I tried to push it away, but it kept returning. Would my own mother forge my signature? At first light, I slipped out of my childhood bedroom and began searching the house. Mom had always been meticulous about keeping important papers. If there was a copy of the sale documents, I would find it. In her home office, the filing cabinet was half empty, as if she'd already moved the important documents. But she'd missed something. In the trash can, partially burned, were scraps of paper. I carefully pieced them together on the desk. Practice sheets. Someone had been practicing my signature over and over. My hands went cold. My own mother had forged my name. I confronted her at breakfast, sliding the reconstructed practice sheets across the table. "What is this?" I asked, my voice so calm it surprised even me. The color drained from her face. "You went through my things?" "Answer the question, Mom." "Did you forge my signature to sell our house?" She couldn't hold my gaze. "You wouldn't have understood, Ellie. This was for the best." "For the best?" My voice rose. "You committed fraud. You sold our family home, Dad's legacy, without even telling me." "I needed the money," she said, her voice suddenly hard. "Your father left me with more debts than you know. This house was a burden. Then you should have talked to me. We could have figured something out together." "Like what? You're always so busy with your perfect job and your perfect life in Chicago. You've barely been here since he died." The unfairness of her accusation stung. "I offered to help you financially multiple times. You always said you were fine." "Well, I wasn't fine," she snapped. "And now I won't be. The sale is final, Ellie. What's done is done." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "No, what's done is fraud, and I'm not going to let this go." I left the kitchen, my mind racing. I needed proof of the forgery. I needed to speak with the real estate agent, the buyers, the lawyer who processed the sale. I would not be robbed of my inheritance, not even by my own mother. I called in sick to work and extended my stay. Each day, I pieced together more of what had happened. Mom had been gambling, something none of us knew she did, and had accumulated massive debts. She'd mortgaged her half of the house without telling me, but it wasn't enough. When the loan sharks started threatening her, she decided to sell the entire property. The real estate agent, Mr. Patterson, was an old friend of hers. He hadn't questioned the signatures on the paperwork. The buyers were an older couple, eager to move closer to their grandchildren. They had no idea there was anything improper about the sale, but the smoking gun came from Mrs. Winters, Dad's former secretary, who now worked at the county records office. She had always had a soft spot for me. "I thought it was odd," she confided when I visited her. "The signature looked like yours, but something seemed off. Your mother was in such a rush to process everything." "Can I see the documents?" I asked. Mrs. Winters hesitated. "I shouldn't, but..." She pulled up the digital copies on her computer and turned the screen toward me. There it was, my signature, but not quite right. The E was too looped, the crossing on the T too high. It was close, but not close enough. And next to it, my mother's authentic signature, the one I'd seen on birthday cards and permission slips my entire life. "I need copies of everything," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. That evening, I sat across from my mother in what was once our family living room, now half-packed for moving. "I know everything," I said quietly, placing the copies of the sale documents on the coffee table between us. "I've spoken to Mr. Patterson, to Mrs. Winters, even to the buyers." Mom's face hardened. "So what now? You'll turn me in? Have your own mother arrested for forgery? Is that what you think of me?" I asked, genuinely hurt. "That I'd send you to jail?" For the first time since this began, uncertainty flashed across her features. "What do you want, then?" "I want you to tell me why," I said. "Not just about the gambling debts. Why didn't you come to me? Why did you think you had to do this alone?" She looked away, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "You've always been so judgmental, Ellie. So perfect. Your father was the same way. Neither of you ever understood what it's like to fail, to make mistakes." "That's not true," I said. "Dad forgave you for everything, even the affair with Uncle Jack that you thought he never knew about." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "He told you about that?" I nodded. "Before he died. He said everyone deserves a second chance. That's why he made sure you were taken care of in the will, despite everything." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't deserve him." "Maybe not," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "But he loved you anyway, and so do I, Mom. But this I gestured to the sale documents. This is something I can't just forgive and forget. What are you going to do? She whispered. I took a deep breath. Tomorrow we're going to meet with a lawyer, a different lawyer. We're going to tell the truth about what happened. The sale will be invalidated because of the forgery. The buyers will get their money back. But the debts, I'll help with those, I said. Not by giving you money directly, but by setting up a payment plan with a financial advisor. You'll need to get help for the gambling, Mom. Real help. She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. And the house? We'll sell it properly together. Half the proceeds will go into a trust I'll manage to pay off your debts. The rest will be my inheritance as Dad intended. You have every right to hate me, she said quietly. I don't hate you, I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. But I will never let anyone, not even you, take advantage of me again. That night, as I lay in my childhood bedroom for what might be the last time, I thought about forgiveness. It wouldn't come quickly or easily. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But I also thought about what Dad would have wanted. He believed in second chances, in doing the right thing even when it's hard. The next morning, Mom and I sat side by side in the lawyer's office as she confessed everything. The lawyer, Ms. Rivera, listened without judgment, taking detailed notes. What you did was indeed fraud, Mrs. Carter, she said when Mom finished speaking. And normally, I would advise your daughter to press charges. However, since you've both come forward voluntarily and have a plan to make things right, there may be a way to handle this without criminal proceedings. As we walked out of the office 2 hours later, legal papers in hand to stop the sale, Mum turned to me. I don't deserve your help, she said. After what I did, no, I interrupted. You don't deserve it. But that's what family does. We help each other even when it's not deserved. Dad taught me that. She reached for my hand, her grip desperate. I'll make this right, Ellie. I swear I will. I looked into her eyes, seeing both the woman who had raised me and the stranger who had betrayed me. Yes, I said firmly, you will. The meeting with the buyers was the hardest part. Mrs. Rivera arranged it at her office, with both Mom and me present. The Andersons, Robert and Janet, were in their 60s, with kind faces that fell when they heard why we'd asked to meet. I'm afraid there's been a serious issue with the sale of the property on Maple Street, Ms. Rivera began, her voice professional but gentle. Mrs. Carter has admitted to forging her daughter's signature on the sale documents. Janet Anderson's hand flew to her mouth. Forged? But that means the sale is invalid, Ms. Rivera confirmed. Ms. Eleanor Carter is co-owner of the property and she never consented to its sale. Robert Anderson's face flushed with anger. We've already given notice at our current home. We're supposed to move next week. I'm so sorry, Mum said, her voice small. You never meant to get caught, Robert interrupted, his voice sharp. I cleared my throat. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, I understand you're upset, and you have every right to be. My mother's actions were inexcusable. I shot her a pointed look before continuing. But I want you to know that we're going to make this right. You'll get a full refund, plus compensation for any expenses you've incurred because of this situation. And where is that money coming from? Robert demanded. If she needed to sell the house in the first place, how can you afford to pay us back? I met his gaze steadily. I'm covering it, all of it. My mother and I will work out our financial arrangements separately, but you won't suffer because of her actions. The tension in Robert's shoulders eased slightly. Janet reached across the table toward my mother. Why would you do something like this to your own daughter? Mom couldn't meet her eyes. I made terrible mistakes, gambling debts. I was desperate and ashamed. Shame makes people do unthinkable things, Janet said softly, and something in her tone made me wonder if she spoke from experience. We'll help you find another property, I offered. Ms. Rivera knows several reliable real estate agents who can prioritize your search, given the circumstances. By the end of the meeting, the Andersons' anger had mellowed to disappointed acceptance. They agreed not to press charges, accepting our offer of full reimbursement plus expenses. As they left, Janet squeezed my hand. "Your father would be proud of how you're handling this," she said. I froze. "Did you know my father?" She nodded. "John Carter. He handled our taxes for years before he got sick. He spoke of you often, his brilliant daughter who was going to change the world." Tears pricked at my eyes. Even now, Dad was looking out for me, his connections somehow easing this terrible situation. After the Andersons left, Miss Rivera turned to us. "You've avoided criminal charges, but there's still the matter of the county records. The forged documents will need to be formally invalidated." "What will happen to my mother?" I asked. Ms. Rivera's expression was grave. "Normally, this would trigger an investigation. However, since you're not pressing charges and the Andersons have agreed to a private settlement, we can file this as a correction of error. Mrs. Carter will need to sign an affidavit admitting to the forgery, but it won't necessarily lead to criminal prosecution." Mom nodded, resignation in every line of her body. "I'll sign whatever you need me to." As we left the lawyer's office, the weight of what we'd narrowly avoided hung between us. Mom had nearly been charged with fraud. I had nearly lost my inheritance. The house Dad had wanted to keep in the family was still in jeopardy because of her gambling debts. "I've made an appointment for you," I said as we drove home. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. "With who?" Mom asked warily. "Gambling addiction counselor. His name is Dr. Mercer. If we're going to move forward, this is non-negotiable." She was quiet for a long moment. "You sound just like him, you know, your father. That same tone when your mind is made up. Is that a bad thing?" She sighed. "No, it was one of the things I loved most about him, his certainty." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings with financial advisors, addiction counselors, real estate agents to properly list the house. I extended my leave of absence from work, explaining to my boss that I was dealing with a family emergency. He was understanding, if confused by my vagueness. Through it all, Mom and I existed in a strange limbo. We were civil to each other, sometimes even warm, but the trust between us was shattered. I watched her like a hawk, checking bank statements, accompanying her to appointments, essentially treating her like a child who couldn't be trusted on her own. "You don't have to babysit me," she snapped one afternoon as I reviewed the latest statement from her bank account. "Don't I?" I replied, not looking up. "You forged my signature to sell our house, Mom. You lied to me for months, years, probably. So yes, until I see consistent evidence that you're trustworthy again, I do have to babysit you." "I'm still your mother," she said, her voice small. I finally looked at her. "Yes, you are. That's the only reason we're sitting here instead of in a courtroom." The house sold faster than we expected. A young family with 2 small children, eager for the spacious backyard and good school district. The closing was set for the end of the month. As that day approached, Mom grew increasingly withdrawn. I found her one evening sitting on the window seat in the living room, staring out at the yard where the sold sign now stood again, legitimately this time. "Are you okay?" I asked, sitting beside her. "I keep thinking about when we first moved here," she said softly. "You were just 3. John carried you on his shoulders as we walked through the empty rooms, talking about all the memories we'd make here." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "And now I'm the reason we're losing it." "We were going to sell it eventually," I said, surprising myself with the gentleness in my voice. "Maybe not now. Maybe not like this. But houses aren't meant to be shrines, Mom. Dad knew that. But it was supposed to be your decision too," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I took that from you, just like I took so much from your father over the years. My curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" She looked away again. "Your father was brilliant. He could have had a much bigger career, maybe even his own firm. But I was always afraid to leave this town, afraid of change. So he stayed here, doing local tax work, when he could have been so much more." He never seemed unhappy," I said, thinking back to Dad's easy smile, his contentment with simple pleasures. "He wasn't. That was the miracle of John. He could find happiness anywhere." She reached over and took my hand. "You have that too, you know. That ability to make the best of things. I've watched you these past weeks handling this mess I created with such grace." "I wouldn't call it grace," I said with a dry laugh. "More like barely controlled fury." "No," she insisted. "It's grace. You could have destroyed me legally, financially, socially. You had every right to. Instead, you found a way through that protects both of us." I didn't know how to respond to that. Was it grace or just pragmatism? I wasn't sure myself. The day before closing, we held a small goodbye gathering for the house. I invited a few childhood friends who still lived in town. Mom invited some neighbors. We ordered pizza and drank wine and shared memories of the years within these walls. Mrs. Peterson from next door brought over a photo album I'd never seen before. "Your father asked me to keep this," she said, handing it to me. "He said to give it to you when the time was right. I think now, as you're saying goodbye to the house, might be that time." I opened it to find photos I'd never seen. Mom and Dad when they first bought the house, standing proudly in front of the porch. Dad installing the tire swing that I'd spent countless hours on. Mom painting my bedroom the exact shade of purple I'd insisted on as a teenager. The three of us at backyard barbecues, holiday gatherings, ordinary moments made special because we were together. "I didn't know he kept these," Mum said, looking over my shoulder. "There's a letter," Mrs. Peterson said, pointing to an envelope tucked into the back of the album. With trembling fingers, I opened it and recognized Dad's handwriting immediately. "My dearest Ellie," it began. "If you're reading this, it means you're saying goodbye to the house on Maple Street. Whether that's happening soon after my passing or many years later, I want you to know something important. A house is just a building. The memories we made there, the love we shared, those are what matter, and you carry them with you always. Your mother and I weren't perfect. We made mistakes, some small, some significant. But we always loved you, and we always tried to do right by you. As you move forward, remember that forgiveness isn't just something you give to others, it's a gift you give yourself. Holding on to anger only weighs you down. Whatever has led to this moment of goodbye, I hope you can find peace with it. The best parts of our family were never about the walls that surrounded us, but about how we showed up for each other, especially when it was difficult. All my love, always Dad." I couldn't stop the tears that flowed as I read his words aloud. When I finished, the room was silent except for soft sniffles. "He knew," Mum said finally. "Somehow he knew something like this might happen." "He knew you," I corrected her. "Both of us, our strengths and our failings." Mrs. Peterson squeezed my shoulder. "Your father was the wisest man I ever knew, not because he had all the answers, but because he asked the right questions." As our guests left that evening, Mom and I found ourselves alone in the nearly empty house. Most of our belongings were packed, ready for separate destinations, her things to a small apartment near her sister's place, mine back to Chicago. "Will we be okay?" she asked as we sat on the floor of the living room, leaning against boxes. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I want us to be. But it's going to take time, Mom, a lot of time." She nodded, accepting this hard truth. "I'll do whatever it takes. The counseling, the financial monitoring, all of it. I won't let you down again, Ellie. Don't make promises you can't keep, I warned her. Just take it one day at a time. That's what your counselor keeps saying, right? She smiled faintly. One day at a time? Yes. On closing day, we both dressed carefully, as if for a funeral. In a way, it was the end of our family's time in this house, the death of certain illusions I'd held about my mother and our relationship. At the title company, we sat side by side as the documents were presented. The new owners, the Wilsons, were across the table, excited to begin their own chapter in the house on Maple Street. When it came time to sign, the agent slid the papers toward us. "Mrs. Carter, you'll sign here as co-owner," he said to my mother. "And Ms. Carter, you'll sign here." Mom's hand trembled as she took the pen. She looked at me, a question in her eyes. "Go ahead," I said. "This time, you only sign for yourself." Her signature was shaky but authentic. When she finished, she passed the pen to me. I signed my name, the real one, not the forgery she had created, and felt an unexpected sense of release. This chapter was ending, but perhaps something new could begin. As we handed over the keys to the Wilsons, Mrs. Wilson asked, "Is there anything we should know about the house? Any quirks or secrets?" Mom and I exchanged a look. There were so many stories these walls had witnessed. Some beautiful, some painful, all part of what made us who we were. "The third step from the bottom creaks," I said, "no matter how many times it gets fixed. And the maple tree in the backyard gives the best shade in summer," Mom added. "Perfect for a reading spot." "Thank you," Mrs. Wilson said, clearly sensing there was more but not pressing. "We'll take good care of it." "I know you will," I replied, and was surprised to find I meant it. It was time for new memories to be made here, untainted by betrayal. As Mom and I walked to our separate cars, her to her new apartment, me back to Chicago, she stopped me with a hand on my arm. "I want you to know something," she said. "Even though I did a terrible thing, I'm grateful for what came after. Not the pain I caused you, but the chance it gave us to be honest with each other, maybe for the first time ever." I considered this. "I'm not there yet, Mom. I can't be grateful for any of this right now. But maybe someday." She nodded, understanding. "One day at a time. One day at a time," I echoed and got into my car. As I drove away from Maple Street for what might be the last time, I thought about Dad's letter. The house was just a building. What mattered were the memories, the lessons, the love, however imperfect, that we carried forward. I didn't know if Mom and I would ever fully repair what had been broken. Trust, once shattered, leaves sharp edges that cut when you try to piece it back together. But I did know that I wasn't carrying the white-hot anger I'd felt when I first discovered her betrayal. In its place was something quieter, more contemplative, a determination to build something healthier, more honest, from the ruins of what had been destroyed. The road ahead would be long and uncertain. There would be setbacks, disappointments, maybe even more revelations of past deceptions. But there was also the possibility of healing, of finding our way back to each other, not as the mother and daughter we had pretended to be, but as the flawed, complex women we truly were. The drive back to Chicago gave me too much time to think. 5 hours alone with my thoughts, replaying every conversation, every lie, every moment leading up to that forged signature. By the time I reached my apartment, I was emotionally drained, wanting nothing more than to collapse into bed and forget everything for a while. But life doesn't pause for personal crises. My inbox was overflowing with urgent work matters, my plants were wilting from neglect, and my refrigerator contained nothing but expired yogurt and a suspicious-looking takeout container I couldn't remember ordering. "Welcome home," I muttered to myself as I dropped my bags by the door. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Made it to the apartment. It's smaller than I expected, but clean. Call when you can." I set the phone down without replying. I needed space, time to process everything without her voice in my ear, seeking reassurance I wasn't ready to give. The next morning, I dragged myself to the office, pasting on a smile that felt brittle around the edges. "Ellie, you're back!" My assistant Mia greeted me with genuine warmth. "How was your family emergency? Is everyone okay?" "It's complicated," I said, not ready to share the full story. "But it's being handled." "Well, we missed you around here. Jensen's been asking about the Hartwell presentation every day." "Right. The Hartwell account, our biggest client, with a make-or-break presentation scheduled for next week. Before the house drama, I'd been working on it for months. Now I had less than 7 days to catch up on everything I'd missed. I threw myself into work with a desperate kind of energy, grateful for the distraction. Spreadsheets and market analyses didn't lie or forge signatures or gamble away family legacies. They were refreshingly straightforward, comfortingly predictable. 3 days passed before I finally called Mom back. Our conversation was stilted, filled with awkward pauses and careful words. "How's the new job going?" I asked. Part of our agreement had been that she would find employment, something stable to help manage her finances and keep her occupied. "It's fine. The bookstore is quiet, which gives me time to think." "Maybe too much time." "And Dr. Mercer? You're still seeing him?" I pressed, needing to know she was sticking with the addiction counseling. "Twice a week, like we agreed. He says I'm making progress." She paused. "I'd like you to come to a session sometime when you're ready. He thinks it would be helpful for both of us." The thought made my stomach clench. "I'm not ready for that, Mom." "I understand." The resignation in her voice made me feel both guilty and justified. "How's work?" "Busy. Big presentation next week." I searched for something more personal to share, some fragment of my life I could offer her. "I'm thinking of getting a cat." "A cat?" She sounded genuinely surprised. "But you travel so much for work." "Not as much as you think," I said, defensive for reasons I couldn't articulate. "And cats are independent. They don't need constant attention." Unlike some people, I thought, but didn't say. The passive-aggressive comment hovered unspoken between us. "Well, I think it's a good idea," she said finally. "Your father always wanted a pet, you know. I was the one who said no." Another revelation, another piece of dad she'd denied him. I bit back the accusation rising to my lips. "I should go," I said instead. "Lots of work to catch up on." "Of course, call when you can, Ellie." I hung up feeling worse than before, as if the conversation had reopened a wound that had just begun to scab over. The Hartwell presentation consumed my days and nights. I worked until my eyes burned, fueled by coffee and determination, and the need to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I was still in control of something in my life. The night before the presentation, I stayed at the office until midnight, rehearsing my slides, anticipating questions, visualizing success with the same intensity I'd once used to imagine confronting my mother about her betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from my colleague, James. "You've got this, Carter. Don't overthink it." James had been my professional ally since I joined the firm 2 years ago. We'd navigated office politics together, covered for each other during crises, celebrated each other's wins. He'd noticed my distraction since my return, but hadn't pushed for details, offering instead silent support and occasional reminders to eat something other than vending machine granola bars. I smiled at his text, feeling a flicker of warmth for the first time in weeks. "Thanks. I'll try." The Hartwell presentation went better than I dared hope. The client asked tough questions, but I had answers ready. They pushed back on pricing, but I held firm, backing my position with data they couldn't refute. When they signed the contract for a 3-year engagement, our largest ever, the conference room erupted in applause. "Ellie Carter saves the day," James said, grinning as we headed back to our offices. "We need to celebrate. Drinks tonight?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted nothing more than to lose myself in overpriced cocktails and easy conversation with someone who knew nothing about forged signatures or gambling debts or lost family homes. But another part, the part still raw and bleeding from all that had happened, craved solitude. "Rain check," I said. "I'm running on fumes here." He studied my face. "Everything okay? You've seemed different since you got back." "Just tired," I lied. "It's been a long few weeks." He didn't look convinced, but nodded anyway. "The offer stands whenever you're ready." That night, alone in my apartment, I finally allowed myself to really feel everything I'd been suppressing. The anger, the betrayal, the grief. Not just for the house, but for the relationship with my mother that would never be the same. I cried until my throat was raw, until my eyes swelled, until the pillow beneath my face was soaked through. When the storm of emotion finally passed, I felt hollowed out, but somehow lighter, as if the tears had washed away some of the heaviest pieces of my burden. My phone lit up with a notification, an email from Ms. Rivera, the lawyer who had handled the house situation. The subject line read, "Final Settlement Statement, Carter Property." I opened it with trembling fingers. The email was brief and professional, confirming that all aspects of the sale had been properly finalized, all parties had received their appropriate funds, and the case was now officially closed. Attached was a PDF of the final accounting, the sale price of the house, minus the outstanding mortgage, minus the fees and expenses, with half the remaining amount transferred to my account and half to Mom's supervised trust. It was over. Legally, financially, officially over. I should have felt relieved, but instead, a new wave of sadness washed over me. The house on Maple Street, the physical manifestation of my childhood, my father's legacy, was now just a line item on a settlement statement. Property ID 457-892, sale price, net proceeds, case closed. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline glittering against the night sky. This was my home now, this apartment, this city, this life I'd built for myself. Not the house with the creaky third step and the maple tree perfect for reading beneath. My phone rang, Mom's name lighting up the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something, maybe the catharsis of tears, maybe the finality of that settlement statement, made me answer. "I got the email from Ms. Rivera," she said without preamble. "It's really done now." "Yes," I replied, "it's done." "How do you feel?" she asked tentatively. I'd considered lying, saying I was fine, that it was just a house, but the time for pleasant fictions between us had passed. "Sad," I admitted, "relieved, angry still, lost somehow." She was quiet for a moment. "I feel all those things too, and ashamed, always ashamed." "Does it ever get easier?" I asked, surprising myself with the vulnerability in the question. "The shame, I mean. Dr. Mercer says it will with time. He says shame is useful only if it leads to change, not if it keeps us stuck." She paused. "I'm trying to believe him." "That sounds wise. He's a good doctor. You might like him. If you ever decide to join me for a session." I didn't immediately refuse this time. "Maybe, someday." "Ellie?" Her voice was hesitant. "I got a call from Robert Anderson today, the man who was going to buy the house before you forged my signature," I finished for her. No point in dancing around it. "Yes," she acknowledged. "He wanted to tell me they found another house. A better one, actually. He said sometimes things happen for a reason, even difficult things." That was unexpectedly gracious of him. It was. It made me think about how other people have moved forward after making terrible mistakes. How they found ways to make amends that actually mean something. She took a deep breath. "Which is why I've decided to volunteer at the Gambling Addiction Center. To share my story. To try to help others before they do what I did." This caught me off guard. "Mom, I searched for the right word. That's courageous. Is it, or is it just the least I can do? Maybe both, I conceded. I start next week, just a few hours observing at first, but Dr. Mercer thinks my experience could be valuable to others struggling with the same demons. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt a flicker of something like pride for my mother. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition of her effort to transform her shame into something constructive. I think that's good, Mom. I really do. The conversation shifted then, becoming slightly easier, slightly warmer. We didn't talk about the house again, focusing instead on smaller, safer topics. The bookstore where she worked, the cat I was considering adopting, a new restaurant that had opened near her apartment. When we hung up, I felt a subtle shift in my heart, like the first thaw after a long winter. Not a complete melting, but a softening around the edges. The next morning, buoyed by the success of the Hartwell presentation and the strange piece of my conversation with Mom, I made a decision. I texted James, "Rain check cancelled, drinks tonight?" His reply came immediately. "Name the place, I'll be there." We met at a small jazz bar we both liked, with dim lighting and good whiskey and music that filled the silences without demanding attention. 2 drinks in, I found myself telling him everything. The house, the forgery, the gambling debts, the painful process of unraveling it all. He listened without interruption, his face registering surprise, then anger on my behalf, then compassion. "That's a lot," he said when I finished. "No wonder you've seemed distant since you got back." I didn't want to bring my personal drama into the office, I explained. It felt important to keep one part of my life untouched by all of this. He nodded, understanding. "For what it's worth, you handled it with more grace than most people would have. I'm not sure I could have been that measured if it were my mother." "I don't feel graceful," I admitted. "I feel like I'm barely holding it together most days." "Yet you nailed the Hartwell presentation." "That's not barely holding it together, that's strength." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise, or just compartmentalization. "Call it what you want," he said, raising his glass. "I call it impressive." We clinked glasses, and for a moment I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in weeks. The weight was still there. The betrayal, the loss, the complicated path forward with Mom, but it seemed more bearable somehow, having been spoken aloud to someone who had no stake in the situation, who could simply witness my pain without being its cause or its solution. As summer turned to fall, I established a new rhythm to my life. Work continued to be my anchor, but I no longer used it as an escape. I adopted a cat, a one-eyed tabby from the shelter who purred like a motor and slept curled against my neck. I named him Maple, a private homage to what had been lost and what remained. Mom and I spoke weekly, our conversations gradually becoming less strained. She continued her counseling, both for gambling addiction and for the deeper issues that had led her there. The trust I'd established to manage her portion of the house proceeds was working as intended, keeping her financially stable while preventing impulsive decisions. One cool October evening, almost exactly 6 months after I'd discovered the sold sign on our lawn, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Eleanor Carter?" a woman's voice asked when I answered. "Yes, it is. Who's calling?" "This is Janet Anderson. We almost bought your house on Maple Street before." "I remember," I said, my guard instantly rising. "Is everything all right?" Yes. We found a lovely home not far from your old neighborhood. But the reason I'm calling," she hesitated. "Your mother spoke at my sister's support group last night for families affected by gambling addiction." I sat up straighter, clutching the phone. She did. "My sister's husband has been struggling for years. She dragged me along for moral support." Janet's voice softened. "Your mother's story, about what she did to you, about facing the consequences, about rebuilding, it really moved a lot of people in that room, including me." I didn't know what to say. Mom had mentioned her volunteer work at the center, but not that she was sharing our story so publicly. "I just thought you should know," Janet continued. "She spoke about you with such love and respect, how you held her accountable but still showed compassion, how she's working every day to deserve a second chance from you." My eyes stung with unexpected tears. "Thank you for telling me." "Some mistakes can't be undone," Janet said gently. "But watching your mother last night, seeing how she's trying to help others avoid her path, it made me think that sometimes our worst actions can lead to our best contributions if we're brave enough to face them honestly." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time, Janet's words echoing in my mind. Our worst actions, our best contributions, the complex algebra of redemption. I texted Mum. "Janet Anderson called me, told me about your talk at the support group." Her reply came quickly. "I hope you're not upset. I changed some details to protect your privacy." "I'm not upset," I wrote back. "I'm proud of you." 3 simple words that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. Yet they were true. Not complete forgiveness, not total trust restored, but pride. Real pride in her courage to face her shame head-on, to use it to help others. Her response took longer this time. "That means more than you know. I love you, Ellie." I took a deep breath and typed, "When's your next session with Dr. Mercer? Maybe I could join." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Tuesday at 2. He'd adjust his schedule for you." "I'll be there," I promised. That night, Maple curled against me, purring into the darkness of my bedroom. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for both healing and hurt. The path forward with Mom would never be simple or straight. Trust would need to be rebuilt brick by brick, over years, not months. But for the first time since that terrible day when I'd discovered her betrayal, I could imagine a future where we were truly mother and daughter again. Not with blind trust or perfect understanding, but with eyes wide open to each other's flaws and strengths, to the complex, imperfect people we really were, not because of the house on Maple Street, but because of what losing it had taught us both. The waiting room of Dr. Mercer's office was deliberately calming. Soft blue walls, comfortable chairs, gentle music playing just above a whisper. My heart raced as if I'd sprinted up 10 flights of stairs. Mom was already there, fingers nervously pleating her cardigan. She stood when she saw me, uncertainty in every line of her body. "You came," she said, as if she'd half expected me to change my mind. I said I would. I sat beside her, leaving one chair empty between us. Dr. Mercer appeared, a tall man with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. He greeted Mom warmly and extended his hand to me. "Eleanor, I've heard much about you. Thank you for coming today." The session was both harder and easier than I'd anticipated. Harder because it required me to articulate feelings I'd barely acknowledged, the depth of my hurt, my lingering anger, my fear that Mom would betray me again. Easier because Dr. Mercer created a space where these admissions felt safe. "What do you need from your mother now?" Dr. Mercer asked toward the end. "Emotionally, what would help you move forward?" I considered carefully. "I need to know that this isn't just about me, that she's changing for herself, not just to win back my approval. Because if it's only about making things right with me, what happens when I'm not watching?" Mom leaned forward. "Ellie, you're right to worry. For a long time, everything I did was about appearances, looking like the perfect wife, the perfect mother, hiding my struggles. The gambling was another secret to maintain, another performance." She took a deep breath. "What I'm learning now is how to live without the mask, to face myself honestly, the good and the terrible parts. That's not about you, it's about me finally growing up at 62. Something in her words resonated with me, the idea that our relationship had been built on performances rather than authenticity. I think I needed to hear that. I said quietly. As winter settled over Chicago, Mom and I established a new rhythm. Weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Mercer, regular phone calls that grew increasingly natural. We were building something different than what we had before, something more honest, if more fragile. 3 months after our first joint session, Mum called with unexpected news. "Remember Janet Anderson from the support group?" she asked. "The woman who almost bought our house. She called me once. She's offered me a job at her non-profit, working with families affected by addiction." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and I felt an answering warmth spread through me. "That's wonderful, Mum. You've worked hard for this." "There's something else," she said, hesitation creeping into her tone. "The job is in Chicago." My breath caught. "You're moving here?" "Only if you're comfortable with it." "I don't want to intrude on your life, Ellie. If it's too much, too soon." "It's not," I interrupted, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "I think it's a good idea." 2 weeks later, I helped Mom move into a small apartment about 20 minutes from mine. Not too close, not too far. A distance that felt right for where we were in our healing process. As we unpacked boxes in her new living room, she pulled out a familiar photo. Dad, her, and me in front of the house on Maple Street, all smiling on the day they first bought it. "I thought you might want this," she said, holding it out to me. I shook my head. "Keep it. I have the memories. And besides," I added, "we're making new ones now." 6 months to the day after I discovered the sold sign, Mum and I sat in a small cafe near her apartment. The winter afternoon cast long shadows through the windows as we sipped our coffee in comfortable silence. "I saw Mrs. Wilson yesterday," Mom said suddenly, "the woman who bought our house." My hand tightened around my mug. "Oh? How is she?" "Good. They're happy there. She said they fixed the creaky step." Mom smiled wistfully. "Some things change, I suppose." "Some things don't," I replied. "Dad would be proud of you, of how you faced everything." "Of both of us," she corrected gently. "It takes courage to forgive, Ellie, as much as it takes to admit wrongdoing." "I'm not sure I've fully forgiven yet," I admitted, "but I'm working on it." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "One day at a time, remember?" Later that evening, as I unlocked my apartment door, Maple greeted me with his thunderous purr weaving between my legs. I picked him up, burying my face in his soft fur. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Thank you for today, for everything." I settled on the couch, Maple curled in my lap, and typed my reply, "See you Sunday for brunch." Such a simple exchange, so ordinary it might seem insignificant. But in those few words lay the evidence of how far we'd come, from betrayal to cautious trust, from anger to tentative peace, from broken to healing. The house on Maple Street was gone, but here in this quiet moment, I realized that what truly mattered had survived. Not walls or deeds or signatures, but the capacity to face hard truths, to rebuild what was broken, to choose connection over resentment. My mother had forged my signature, thinking she could erase me from my inheritance. Instead, she'd signed herself into a journey of painful growth, of genuine amends. And I had signed on too, not to forget or to simply move on, but to build something authentic from the ashes of what we'd lost. One signature had broken us, but with every day, every honest conversation, every small act of trust, we were signing our names to something new, something real, something ours.